Well, I've just managed a little bit more time. I've just pulled the compressor out. As I mentioned previously, it's not working. I've had to cut one of the plugs off because that's the only way I could get it disconnected. You can see there's a bit of heat in there. That's the negative and positive. An auto electrician who shall remain nameless wired up my airbag gauges, and they actually connected this negative wire from the gauges to the wrong cable, and they'd spliced it on this positive and I had to splice back in on this negative, so it was all over the shop. The other end of the compressor, you can see it's not happy. There's obviously a lot of heat in that little connection there, so I don't know if the compressor's still working or not, but anyhow, that's job for another day. I'll pull it apart and have a look, or I'll just wire it up separately and see if I can get it to run, notwithstanding that plug. So now I've got to splice in a new plug, one of these plugs onto these wires, and that negative from the airbag gauge as well into there. Once I've done that, then I can mount up the compressor, the new compressor, plug it all up and make sure it works. As you've seen, I've got the old compressor out and I've got a new one here. I'm actually going to cut these plugs off and replace them with overkill Anderson plugs. So some prep on that. That's pretty simple. Just going to cut this plug off. Going to tin these up, fill them up full of solder, all 4 of them. I'll trim the insulation back, put a bit of heat shrink around them. Then I'll solder on the plugs and then finish them up with some heat shrink. So I've just got a little butane burner here. Got it on a low setting. And this will take quite a bit of solder. You'll see some flux coming out shortly. I don't want to use my little butane burner on these wires because I'll probably burn the insulation off. So I've just got a little soldering iron here. I'm just going to tin these wires before I stick them in the Anderson plug terminals. See, I've slipped on some heat shrink around the wires as well. Set. There's my 2 terminals on there. Now the heat shrink's not likely going to get over those terminals, but I'm going to get it right up as close as I can once it's cooled a bit, and just shrink them up a bit. Oh, they've cooled off a bit. I'm just going to heat shrink. Just set it there for the time being. That one looks good. And that's going to be a bit warm, so that's about as good as I'm going to get it on that. And I'll just do the earth. Now I'm not going to tell you how to suck eggs and how to push terminals in here. If you need to know, drop it in the comments and I'll... Well, that's the compressor done. Got to tin up these two terminals now and go back down to the cruiser where the supply power is in the earth iron. Trim up those wires, tin them, solder these pins on, put the clip on, then the wiring is ready to go and I can start installing the compressor back in. I've just finished soldering these two little terminals on now. You can see I've got the airbag man gauge wire in through the heat shrink, and I've soldered them both into that terminal, so it's a lot neater than it was previously. That old electrician had spliced and just cut some insulation away and soldered it straight into the wire, and they've done the same, something with the positive as well, but I don't think that worked out too well because there wasn't anything soldered in there. I think it's actually come to a pressure gauge now. But now it's all in. I'm just going to put the Anderson plug on it now, and we can start playing around with the wiring and try and wire it all up and put some more elastic in here and mount up the compressor. Just thought I'd show you what I'm looking for when I put those pins in. You can see them just inside the plugs there. There's a little retaining spring metal in there, and those lugs just pull this side of the camera or this side of the plug over the top of them and they lock in place. So I'm pretty satisfied they're in place now. Short update on the air compressor. I've got it installed now. I've got the air fittings, got the Anderson plugs, but I haven't connected them. The reason is when I connected them together I blew the fuse. Well, before I blew the fuse there was no power or anything getting there. The relay that operates all this was kaput, so I replaced it. Then when I connected it all up, it blew the fuse. So I disconnected it, and when I do a resistance check or a continuity check across the positive and negative, it shows I've got full continuity. In other words, there's a short in the loom somewhere. I've got the plug pulled off the relay, so it should be a complete open circuit both on the positive and negative wires, but they're not. So next job is to chase down where the short is in the loom between here and the front. Well, after about an hour I've sourced the short in the loom. Another joiner plug. You can see it's sort of fused together there, and they've melded into each other, so that created a short. So the positive wire was obviously getting pretty hot. I don't know, it's just because it's a crap plug, really cheap. As you know, I replaced this sort of plug in the airbox with an Anderson plug. Probably a bit more heat resilient than this. The circuit's rated at 40 amps. Got a 60 amp fuse, so I'll probably drop that back down to a 40 amp fuse. Good old Fluke multimeter helped me out with this. Plus pulling heaps of the loom apart. I'll just show you where I've cut it out. Alright. That part of the loom goes down to the airbox. The other end of the loom's up here, the engine box. Now the negative doesn't go to the relay block, but the positive does. That negative wire looks okay. I've checked it, and I've checked that positive wire back up to this terminal block that plugs into the relay, and they're all fine. So now I'm probably about 6 inches short of wire. So I'm going to have to do some splicing and soldering to fix that up, and I'll probably get a better rated plug than that as well. So I had the electrical loom on the compressor done, and it was this loom here which goes up to this relay, which is for the compressor. I've replaced the relay, as you may recall, and the loom was down here somewhere. So they've wrapped it all up. Pretty tidy job. Something better than I could have done myself. Have a look from underneath. Alright, you can see that's the loom up there, and they've put it some new insulation tape on. Zippy tied it all up out of the way. Nice and neat. Well, I've had the electrical stuff done on the compressor loom. You may recall it was about 6 inches short after I cut out a 2-pin plug connection. About to pump up some tyres, 50 pounds maximum. Does it work? You betcha. This one.